In the past, JavaScript has always had very little built-in data structures. So basically, we only had objects and arrays. But in ES6, two more data structures were finally introduced, and that are sets and maps. So these are pretty common data structures that already exist in other programming languages, and now they also exist in JavaScript. So in this lecture, let's learn all about sets. And a set is basically just a collection of unique values. So that means that a set can never have any duplicates, and that property makes them useful in certain situations. So let's create a new set here. Let's call it orders set. Okay. So again, to create a new set, we write new set, and then here we need to pass in an iterable. And the most common iterable here is an array. So let's create an array with a couple of strings now. Let's say pasta, pizza, then pizza again, then risotto. Let's put another pasta and another pizza. Okay, so 6 strings, but of course they could be different data types in here. So set can of course hold mixed data types. That's not a problem at all. Now here we clearly see some duplicate strings. So what do you think that this set will look like now that we created it and when we log it to the console? Well, we get a set. Here we can see it has a size of 3, and the only values that are in there are pasta, pizza, and risotto. So that's right, all the duplicates are actually gone. Now also we can see that a set kind of looks similar to an array, right? So there are no key value pairs, it's just a bunch of values grouped together, in this case into a set. And just like arrays, sets are also iterables, okay? Now, of course, a set is still very different from an array. So first, because its elements are unique, and second, because the order of elements in the set is irrelevant. And we will see why in a second. But anyway, keep in mind that strings are also iterables. So we can do this. So we can pass in a string. And so now we get a set with these 5 elements. So, and that's the 5 components basically of this iterable, which is this string. And of course, the set could also be empty, just like this. All right. And now let's learn how to actually work with sets. So first off, we can get the size of a set. So order set.size, and so that is 3. And so in this particular example, this might be useful for the chef of our kitchen to know how many different meals are going to be cooked here, right? So if this array here is an array of all the orders, then the set of these orders are simply the unique different meals that are going to be cooked. And then the size is how many different meals will be cooked. And just note how it is actually called size and not length like it is in arrays. So don't make that confusion. Next, we can check if a certain element is in a set. So order set.has, and so this is actually a method. And so let's check if pizza is in there, and let's check if bread is in there. So true and false. And that's exactly as we expected. And so comparing again to arrays, this has method is similar to the includes method in arrays, right? Next up, we can also add new elements to a set. So order set dot. So let's say that now someone ordered garlic bread. And let's say that this actually happened twice. So what do you think that the set will look like now? So order set. And so the garlic bread got added, but only, of course, one of them, because again, the set has to be unique. And so the second one was basically ignored. Finally, we can also delete elements. So let's do that before the log. So order set dot delete. So all of these method names are very straightforward, and that's because this is such a modern feature. So the modern stuff really has these more straightforward names and a different way of working with the data structures. So we have risotto here, and so now here we are deleting it, and so indeed it is now gone from the set. So really, really easy, and in arrays there's actually no method that is this simple. We will see how to delete elements from arrays later, but I can tell you that it's a little bit more complex. Okay, and that's actually it. But now you might ask, how do we actually retrieve values out of a set? Can we maybe use an index like in arrays? So doing something like, maybe like this here. And the answer, as we will see, is no. So this doesn't work. It gives us undefined, no matter what number we put here. All right. And that is because in sets, there are actually no indexes. And in fact, there is no way of getting values out of a set. And if we think about this, then it makes sense. So there's really no need for getting data out of a set. That's because if all values are unique, and if their order does not matter, then there is no point of retrieving values out of a set. All we need to know is whether a certain value is in a set or not, and that's why we have the has method. If your goal is to actually store values in order and then retrieve it, then the best use case is to just use an array. You wouldn't use a set for that. And so again, there's no need for getting values out of a set, because if you need it, then you would just use an array. Finally, there is actually one more method here, but it's not that important. All we can use it for is to basically delete all of the elements of the set. And so we see that now it is empty, right? But let's put that back so that we can work some more with this set. So as I said in the beginning, sets are also iterables, and therefore we can loop over them. So let's say order from orders set, and not from it is off, obviously. And then we can just log the order, and indeed, here they are. So looping is possible just like in any other iterable. All right, so now that we know how to work with sets, let's see a big use case for them right now. So in a normal code base, the main use case of sets is actually to remove duplicate values of arrays. So let's just write that here, example. So let's say that we have an array in our restaurant which contains the stuff of our restaurant. Let's say we have one person that is the waiter, one person that is the chef, another person that is a waiter, then we have also a manager, then we have another person that is a chef also, and another waiter. So that's an array of all our stuff in the restaurant. But now let's say that for some reason we are interested in knowing only which different positions there are in our restaurant. Or in other words, we would basically like to have a unique array of this, right? So this array without all the duplicates, that will solve the problem. So let's create a set for that. Easy enough, right? So stuff unique equals new set, and then the iterable that we need to pass in is the stuff, because an array is already an iterable. Now this is not yet the end of the solution, but let's take a look at it for now. And of course, it needs to be stuff unique. And so, yes. So we have a set now with waiter, chef, and manager. So the 3 unique positions. But now we actually want this to be an array. But the conversion from a set to an array is pretty easy because they are both iterables. So remember from earlier that the spread operator works on all iterables, right? So that includes sets. And so we can now create an array around this basically, and then we can unpack this entire set here using the spread operator, and then these elements will be put into the newly constructed array. Okay? And so indeed, we now end up with a new array. Okay? So the spread operator here works just like on an array. It works really exactly the same. So it takes all the elements out of the iterable and essentially writes them here like comma separated, right? Now, if we only wanted to know how many different positions there are, then the size property is very useful. So all we would have to do, even though this looks a little bit weird, would be to say new set, then with the array, and then dot size. And that's it. And then we wouldn't even need to have to create the array at all. So if we didn't need the unique array. So if all we had was this, and we wanted to know how many unique positions there are, then this here would be the way to go. And the same could even be done with counting how many different letters there are in a string, right? Because an iterable, or actually a string, is also an iterable. So let's see how many different letters there are in my name. And it looks like there are 11. All right. So, as a conclusion to this video, sets are not intended to replace arrays at all. So whenever you need to store values in order and that might contain duplicates, always just use arrays. That's also true when you need to really manipulate data, because arrays have access to a lot of great array methods that we're going to study a little bit later. Now, sets have this very useful property of being unique. And it's also very easy to interact with sets by using all of their straightforward methods. However, they are not nearly as important as arrays. So keep sets in mind when you need to work with unique values, but besides that, you can just continue using arrays.